Hello. Hey, everyone. Um, Welcome to the Out of the Box Developer session. So, today we're gonna be bringing back actually, right? A discussion regarding to around REST APIs. We had discussed it back, and it was very interesting. Some practices, something that was I neither have some new things to learn, and people also enjoyed a lot. So I think there's lots of more interesting things to go through. I think we missed some more content, and we have an author of the book, Master REST API, right? So we are here with Thiago. So let me say a quick hello here, and then let's talk a bit about that. Let's start the discussion. So let me say hello first to Chila. Hey Chila, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you, Hugo. Hello, Hugo, Thiago, and everyone who is here today with us. I already see Andres and Aurelio are already here in the chat.
Excellent. Andres, Aurelio, you're welcome to ask questions, share your also your experiences, and also discuss with us here in the chat. Please post your questions here. It would be much more interesting to talk about something that you are going through. And let me say hello to Thiago. Hey, Thiago, great to have you here.
Hello, Yogo. Hello, Chilla. Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is a subject that I like to talk about. As you said, I wrote a book about that with other friends, other authors, and REST API it's everywhere. So this is a subject that we need to know it very well because the chances are we are going to create APIs or use APIs. So yeah, it's very important.
Excellent, excellent. I totally agree that it's on our enterprise environment. It's a standard that's going on all the web applications I see nowadays, and and we think it's a simple rules to follow, but in the end, there's lots of questions that rises in the very specific scenarios, in also very common scenarios that we see some challenging decisions we have to make, right? And some practices that lots of other people, smart people, already think about it and already wrote about it, and yeah, we don't have all the knowledge, so it's good to know some of these best practices. I don't know if you want to start with some. Do you want to start with some questions, maybe, Thiago, that you want to drop here to the audience before we start with the presentation,
Yeah,
or what would be the best way to get
Yeah,
started here?
actually, I prepared some slides and I want to show some bad things that we have learned from real world applications, and how to avoid that and what you should do, and also start evolving an API and showing some more best practices. So maybe you can show the slides and then we can do that like a chat. So we can talk a little bit. I'm going to show some things and ask some questions. So it would be
Mhm.
nice to start talking about these kind of problems and yeah, understand the problems, and then I go to the solutions and how can we do that kind of things. So okay, so let's start. So the presentation it's mastering REST, some best practices and lessons
Oh,
from the real world. My name is Thiago
before we
Bonfim,
go, yeah,
and
before we go forward here, let me drop a question here for who is watching us. Uh, if you do implement REST API on your day to day on your work, what is the biggest challenge that you had while doing that? And yeah, let's go now with the
yeah,
presentation. Go
thanks
ahead.
you, thanks you. This is a really good question. And if you have any other question about this, please put in the chat. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to share a link where you can download the book that I talked about. And the things that I'm going to share here, it's just, I think, the first 3 chapters of the book. The book have many chapters, so if you want to go deep on that, I recommend reading the book because it's not possible to talk about everything in a book with more than 300 pages in 1 hour. So let's start. Let me go. Okay, so let's start easy. Okay, so here I have a simple API, simple endpoint using Spring. So we have a REST controller, we have an endpoint, find all using post mapping, and here we can saw some bad things that we should avoid. Maybe you that are in the chat, and also Gila, you, if you can help me, what do you think that it's wrong or we can improve here?
Yes, one of the things usually if you are getting some elements, a list, then you are using a get and not a post method.
Yes, yes, good
Maybe what
point.
it's
Yes,
and
Andres also put the verb, so maybe you avoid
yeah.
using like find all or fix the verb because it's not we are using post method to return data, and we also have a verb in the endpoint, something that we also should avoid. Great. We also have the user that it's in singular. We should use plural, right? And post mapping, find all. And we also have the user entity. In our case, you can think about entity related to the database. So we are exposing our domain or our uh, data from database to the end user, to the client. And this can be a really big problem if you are talking about security, for example. We can expose data that we do not want. So okay, so these are some bad things, and I would like to know about you that are watching us, and also Chila, you, if you have any example of bad things that you have seen in your experience. Maybe I can start. There are many cases, but there is one that it's a there is a big application called Mock Server. Maybe you have already used it. Mock Server, it's an open source application. It's totally outdated, as I know. If you look for GitHub, there are many forks, many stars. It is using Java 8, if I'm not wrong. I think no one maintains it anymore, unfortunately. Uh, and if you look inside Mock Server application, all the endpoints use the put method. They have only one single verb that it's put, and if you look inside, it has only like servlet, a filter, and all the endpoints go to the same place, and it does like the things that the framework does for us. So it has the name of the endpoints, that it is also verbs like slash save, if I'm not wrong. I don't remember the names of the methods, but they use only one single verb that it's put, and also have verbs in the endpoints. So the API is not so clear as it should be. But again, it's a really old API, old project, but is used by many
I
people.
don't use it.
Yes, because I think mock server has more than thousand of stars and also forks, and yeah, it's a really big project. Again, it's outdated. No one maintains it anymore, as I know. So yeah, but it's one big example of a big project, open source project that has this kind of problem. I don't know,
Yeah,
Chila.
it can remind me. before REST become the standard, I remember implementing lots of controllers with these endpoints. That is, most of them are post because it was easier to create a post that you have to send a object and then handle it on the endpoint. And then came the idea of resources, right? These what REST suggest us. So I remember a lot of kind of not. I think on that period I don't even have this post mapping annotation. It was more. I think I had to use some XML to configure Spring. So yeah, I remember a lot of these kind of of endpoints on my end.
Yeah, true. Yeah, at the past, it was really not common to follow these best practices. And
Yeah.
I think, yeah, it's not, REST, it's not so old, right? If you think about
No.
when it started to 2000, if I'm not wrong, something like that. So, yeah, it's not too old. So it take a while after people get used to it and follows and start following the best practices. So yeah, I do understand that because I have done the same at the past. Okay, so let's move on. I don't know, Chile, if you wanna share any example or you in the chat. If you wanna, you can put here in the chat, and then we can. Uh,
I can
oh,
maybe mention one thing that I experienced a long time before with the REST API, that it was not optimal. That if they try to implement all possible methods, like yeah, getting all the elements and put and push and everything without the need that it's not being used, but you implement all kind of methods because it's there, but at the end they were not used at all. So why implement something, or why propose something without real need? So that's what I saw before, maybe as a bad example. But I think
yeah,
you should only implement or expose things that you really using.
yes, you're right. The only code that does not have bug, it's the code that we haven't written right. So we should not have things that we do not need. Okay, so now I move on and show many things that we should do and also improve our API and keep improving and talk about best practices and things that we can do to improve our API. Okay, so let's start. Uh, we talked about HTTP method and we didn't talk about HTTP stats, but it's also very important. So here you have some examples, okay? This is not all the verbs and not even how the stats that we have much more stats codes. But talking about the most common ones are get used to retrieve resource, and it usually use 200 as a successful case. Post is usually used for create a new resource, and you can return 201 if it creates a new resource, or 202 if you are doing in a synchronous mode. You can use put to replace the object. Okay, so it can return 200 if it's updating the resource. It can return 204 if you do not want to return any content. It can also return 201 if you are creating the resource because it does not exist. It's also possible. So you can use put for this kind of things. Replace all the object. And you can use patch for small updates. So it can return, for example, 200 in a successful case. And of course, there is the delete that we usually use 204 no content in a successful case, or 202 if the deletion is in a synchronous mode. Okay, and talking about the name conventions that we talked about in our bad example, so we should not use verbs in the endpoints, should avoid that, like find all, get users, create order. Okay, we should use only the resource, and we should use it in plural. So in our case, users, we should use letter case instead of using uppercase or camel case. So as you can see here, the word separation that maybe you should use is using hyphen instead of camel case. And also talking a little bit about hierarchy, it's a good thing, but we also should be careful about it because if it grows a lot, it can be a little bit hard to maintain and hard to keep it. Okay, and it's very important to keep consistency. Okay, this is one of the most important things. I'm going to talk a little bit about that later. Consistency in our ER APIs, it's very, very important. Okay. Okay.
That's few great tables here. I think it is interesting to have some mug with those those tables printed on it, so we can keep it on our table and remind every time we're gonna write an endpoint. But before continue here, Thiago, I just want to say I will have to leave by now, so I really want to sorry you about that. As you can see, I'm at the book yet, and I have some assignment right now. So, but yeah, I will watch the recording, and I hope you have a great session here today. So,
Yeah,
thank
thanks,
you
no
for
problem. You can watch the recorded session. So yeah, see ya. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a
excellent.
Hugo.
good
Bye
See
bye.
you.
Bye bye.
good luck in your
Thank
job.
you.
Okay, so keep going. We have here the user entity. Okay, that I talked before, and think that this is the entity that you have in our database. We have here, for example, the password. Uh, we are using the string, but never mind. Okay, it's not a ideal thing, but don't focus on that. So we have here a password, okay? So this means that we are saving the password, and of course, we probably don't want to expose this information. So what can we do? Well, we can create a DTO. If you're using Java 17, you can use record for that, and I don't know, maybe call it user response, and it has only the information that we want to expose. Of course, there are other ways. We can use annotations in our entity, but we should avoid that. We should decouple the responsibilities. So in our case, the best thing is to have a, a a domain, a class for the request and the response, and then we can transform this data to our domain. Okay, so we can have a decouple between the layers. Okay, and then you can and then you can use OpenAPI. Okay, to have the documentation. And by using OpenAPI, you can use API first approach. And this is very helpful when you have teams, separated teams, one for front end and one for back end, for example. And then you can find all the API spec, and both teams can work in parallel. And not only that, but by having a well-defined documentation, as you can see here, we have some informations that can be used as validations. So for example, min length, max length, the format, we can have also more things like some regex or some patterns to do validations for us. And if you're using, for example, Spring, it gives you that like out of the box. You only need to include Maven dependency, and it gives you these kind of features out of the box. And I talked about Spring, but the other well-known frameworks also provides that. Okay, so by doing that, we can have some validation. So here we have also a carry parameter, the name, and as you can see here, the name must be no longer than 10 characters. Okay, so you have a filter. The slash users endpoint retrieve all the users, and you can filter it by name, and you can do that with validations, and it's very helpful. And also, as you can see here, our user response has also some informations that can help the client and also the application to protect the data. So as you can see here, for the client, it knows that the ID and the name, it will also be provided. So it is a required field. It will not be null fields. And also that the name, it will be something between 2 and 100 characters. Okay, great. Okay, moving on. If you are using Maven, you can use the OpenAPI generator. If you are using other language, there is also other kind of generations that you can bring the spec and generate the code based on the spec. Okay, this generator is provided by OpenAPI, and using this plugin, it will generate the API for you. So here, as you can see, we have the API, and now in the right way. So we have a method that it's get, the endpoint it's slash users, and it returns a list of user response. It also has the validations, and as you can see here, we have a list of user response. So it also generates the user response for us. And talking about the user response, it will be something like that. Okay, in our case, it will have getters, setters, it will have more annotations, but in IA's way, it will be something like that. And then you can ask me, okay, and how can I transform the user response to a user entity or vice versa? So how can I do that? There are many ways. You can do it manually. You can use getter, setters, constructor, builder, many ways. But there is a very easy way that is using MapStruct, that it's a library that you can use, that it basically generates implementation for this interface that do this kind of mapping. Okay, so it's a very easy way to do that. You can use something like that because the attributes has the same name. It will do it automatically for us. Okay, amazing. Now let's keep improving our API and bringing more issues and know how to solve these issues. Okay, so here we have change our API, we have update our API, and now we have a array, a list of contacts. Okay, so we have the ID, the name, and a list of contacts. Okay, and then if you generate the class, it will be something like that, a list of contacts. It has also validations. It can also have some validations rules. Okay. And then I ask you, it is a breaking chain. What do you think? I will keep moving, but if you wanna answer these on the chat, I'll be glad. But let's moving. Okay, so is it a breaking chain? What do you think? But let's moving because we'll keep increasing and updating the API. So now we have another endpoint. Okay, so we will we want to keep improving our API. We want a new endpoint to create the user. Okay, so we have a post method, and now it's to create a user, so it will return 201, and it receives a user request and return a user response. So as you can see here, we have more objects. We have the user response, user request, and the contact. Okay, all fine. And we have two endpoints, like I said. And now, is it a breaking chain? What do you think? If you wanna put on the chat, maybe this can be a hard question to answer. Maybe you can think, oh, I think it is, or maybe not. It's not so clear to answer this question. So let's think, how can we answer this question in an easy way? Well, for that, we can use another plugin, also for OpenAPI. We can use the OpenAPI diff, and this plugin, we basically put the two versions that we have. In our case, we have the user API 1.0 and user API 1.1, for example. It's a minor version, and we want to see the difference between them. Andres said that he suggested, yes, we added a new method and a new field. Okay, so we have now a list of contact. It's a new field and a new endpoint. This is what we have now. And if you run this plugin, okay, if you run this, in our case using Maven here, we have an output file that will show the result. In this case, I have the fail only compatible as true. So if it is a breaking chain, it will break the Maven compile. But let's see the result. Okay, so what is the result? Okay, this plugin will provide for us this information that say that what is new in our case is that we have a new endpoint, a post slash users, and what have changed is that now we have a change in the slash users get method, and basically it's saying that the API chains are backward compatible. So it's not a breaking change. Amazing. So it can be a minor update in our API, and there is no problem. We are not breaking the client, and this is very important. Avoid break chains. But let's keep improving our API, right? So now we want to have uh, more than one type of contact. Okay, we want to use inheritance, and now we want to have different type of contacts. Here, as you can see, we'll have a discriminator and a proper name. This is from OpenAPI, so we can use this feature from OpenAPI to have inheritance in our API. And as you can see, we have the phone contact that has a reference for the contact, and the same for the email contact that has also a reference for the contact. So we have two type of contacts. We are using inheritance here by defining it in the OpenAPI spec, and it will generate the class for us. Okay. And now I ask you again, is it a break chain? And now, by adding this inheritance, well, if you run again the plugin, we'll have this result. And now it is a breaking chain. Because at the past we have a contact that has a phone number, and now we do not have this anymore. We have two type of contacts. And because we have two type of contacts, it is a breaking chain. Okay. Yeah, as you can see here, the API's chains broke backward compatibility. So it is a breaking chain, something that we should avoid. Okay, and how can we solve this problem? Let's say that you have a break chain, because this can happen. So there are many ways to solve that. Uh, Actually, the way to solve that is applying versioning. And there are many ways to apply versioning in our API. The most common, the most famous one, maybe it's using the URL path strategy. That's basically defined like v1, v2 before the resource. But there are other ways. You can use, for example, carry parameter. And if I'm not wrong, this is the recommendation in the Azure guidelines. You can use content negotiation, that if I'm not wrong, Spring initializers use it internally. You can use also HTTP header, that if I'm not wrong also, GitHub use this strategy. Okay, so there are many strategies, and as everything in IT, it depends. So each one has benefits and drawbacks, and choosing the best one, maybe it will depend on your case. We talk a lot about that in the book that I wrote. So if you want to go deep and want to get the book, it's a good way to understand more each one of these strategies. Okay. So, okay, this is how we can fix breaking chain. But we should know what is a break chain to avoid it. Okay, we know how to identify break chain using the plugin, how to fix it using versioning, but it's very important to know what is a break chain to avoid it at the beginning. So, for example, if you change the endpoint, like the name or add something else, it is a breaking chain. If you rename the field, it's like, for example, first name, and then it becomes F name, it's a breaking chain. If you change or add new attributes that are required, it is a break chain. If you change the data type, for example, we have age as a string, and then we change it to become a number, it is a break chain. If you change some format, for example, the data format, if you remove some unknown value, it's also a break chain, because maybe someone is expecting a value and it's not anymore present. If you change the content type, this is not very common, but if you change it, the client that it's trying to get the content in the application JSON format, it will not work. It will receive, if you're using Spring, for example, 404. So this will not work. And also if you change the response by removing an attribute. Okay, so these are common break chains that we should avoid. And talking about that, Victor Rentea, he talks about that this year in Spring IO. And I do recommend you watching this session if you want to get deep. He talks a lot about many things in REST APIs, and also break chain, some common things and things that we should avoid. So it's a good talk. I do recommend you if you want to get deep on this subject. Okay, and now you can ask me, okay, and how about the mapping? Because now we have a list of contacts, and how does this library works to know that we have a contact, and this contact it's mapping to this other type of contact, how this works. And actually, if you're using MapStruct, this will not work out of the box. So you need to fix it. And there are many ways to do that. So let's see how can we do that, and let's keep improving, right? So okay, so if you're using Java 17, you can use pattern matching for instance of. So in this case, you need to have a default method that returns a contact. It receives, for example, a contact entity, and it will map the contact entity to our contact, that can be the email contact or phone contact. And again, you can use pattern matching, so you can declare the variable in the if statement instead of using cast. So you do not need to have the cast and these kind of things that at least I don't like. And this will work. Again, if you're using Java 17, you can do that. However, if you're using Java 21, there is another approach that you can use, that it's the pattern matching for switch. So as you can see here, we have the same behavior, and basically we receive the contact entity, and then if in case this contact it's an email contact entity, it will map to email contact. It's a phone number, phone contact entity, it will map to phone contact. Okay, and this will work. And if you know this feature, if you are using this feature, you see that I do not have the default case here. And this happens because my contact entity is a sealed class. Okay, so this is why I can do that. Okay, if not, you probably need to have the default case. But in my case, the contact entity is a sealed class, so I do not need to have a default case. And in case I have another contact, it will actually cause a compilation error, which helps a lot. But because we are talking about MapStruct, there is another way to solve this. We can use subclass mapping, and it is like that. So we say the target is email contact and the source email contact entity, and the same for phone contact. And it's a clear way to solve this kind of problem. And in this case, the map or the library will generate the class for us. Okay, so the map struct will generate the implementation for us. And as we said on the beginning, the best way to avoid a bug, it should don't write code, because the only code that the only the bug only exists if you write code. So if you do not write code, there is no bug. So the best thing is to write less code, right? The chance to have a bug, it's uh, lower. Okay, so this we can solve this kind of problems, and it's very helpful knowing that and using this feature if you have inheritance in your API. And because I'm talking about that, I would like to know, you that are watching us, if you can put on the chat if you have done something like that, if you have inheritance in your API, because I don't think this is very common, but knowing how to do it properly, it's very important to avoid some issues and some problems. So if you can put here on the chat if you have done or if you have worked in APIs that use inheritance. And okay, doing a recap, okay, we talk about many things here. We talked about HTTP method, HTTP stats, naming conventions, open API, validations, inheritance and polymorphism, breaking chain, and versioning. And this is what I have here to share with you. Again, there are many more things that I could talk here. It will be impossible to talk about everything that we have in the book. Here I have a QR code to my blog where you can find the link for the book. This is the book. Again, the book have more than 300 pages, and it has much more things. It talks about how you can scale your application, how to deploy an API, how you can use virtual threads to increase the throughput. Uh, it talks about testing. It talks about many things that, again, it's impossible to talk in a single talk. It talks also about resilience patterns. So yeah, many things that it's really hard to talk in only 1 hour. So yeah, again, you can scan the QR code and go to the link to the book. And now I am open to questions, and I think maybe this is the best part where you can ask anything you want, and maybe try to answer the yoga question, that it's what is your biggest challenge regarding to REST APIs? And I don't know if you have any questions here or things.
Right now, I cannot see any more questions.
I see here a comment from Aurelio.
Huh?
Cool, nice plugin to know how to update the API version if it's a major or minor slash patch version increment. Yeah, or this plugin helps a lot because again, if it's not a breaking change, it's not a major. You do not need to update it as a major. It can be a minor or patch version. It helps a lot, and you can also use it uh, in your client. So if you are the client, you are using an API, and then someone provides a new API, you can use also this plugin to know, okay, it's safe. Can I use what have changed? So yeah, it also helps.
But how long did it take for you, Thiago, to write this book? You wrote this book together with other
Ye-
people, other friends. So I think it's a
Yes,
lot
yes,
of work in it there.
yes. I wrote it with some friends, with Marian, Pedro, Silvio, and Igor. We took around 1 year to
Oh,
write the entire book. Of course, it's helpful to have more people writing the book because uh, we can split the tasks, but it's also a little bit challenging because we need to join and decide the flow of the entire book together and try to follow
mm,
it. So yeah, and also it the editor it's packed, so they also have a lot of guidelines that we need to follow, and technical review and things like that. So
mhm,
it also take a while.
okay. And you are using usually REST APIs, or are there any other cases where you don't opt for REST API and you are using another method?
You are talking about the book
No,
or
generally in your
in
experience, in your work
yeah, in
project.
most of the case, I've used REST APIs. I've also consumed some SOAP APIs.
Mm,
That in this case, SOAP, as we know, use like a single method, right? It's post. I think it's only post, XML and things like that. But I haven't create other kind of APIs like GraphQL, for example.
mhm.
At least not for real applications. I know there are some projects and companies that use this kind of approach and gRPC and things like that. But
Yeah.
at least in my experience, the many companies that I've worked for, I don't see that this is very common. REST is by far the most used.
Yes, I think for normal web applications, it's one of the things that people
Yeah,
usually use.
yeah. But your question is great. And how about you?
Usually, I'm using REST API too. So in my what I have applications, I'm using that, and but where I am working, then we are also using some. We are very much on using also events. So there are some event-driven structures where there is an asynchronous communication, and some applications are sending data, and then there are some consumers who are using that data, but it's on an asynchronous. manner.
Yeah. This is also very
Mm,
common
yes.
when you have many APIs. So instead of having them communication between each other, you can do that using like a Kafka or any
Yeah,
uh,
exactly.
yeah, message
So
queue.
that's
Yes, and yeah, there's another approach also. But I think, and probably you, your API in the end will expose the data in REST, right?
yeah.
For the end
So
user, for the client.
usually, yes, to the client
Uh,
or to the front end. Yes.
yes, and just share here that in his last job he used GraphQL, and it was nice. Yes, has been a while since the last time I tried GraphQL. There are
Mhm.
some great features. There is one that I do not remember the name, but it's like you can, if I'm not wrong, you can like keep the connection open,
Mm.
and it's cool because you can keep the connection open and keep receiving the data and updating the screen or something like that. But I don't remember the name that this is called in GraphQL.
Mhm.
Many years that I have tried it. But yeah, but again, there are some cases that maybe GraphQL makes sense. I think if I'm not wrong, YouTube use it, right? But I'm not 100% sure.
Not sure either. So I don't have working experience with that. Actually, I heard about it. I read about it, but practical experience still maybe in one of next
Mm,
project.
yeah, I don't see it very common being used by big companies. But yeah, maybe some small companies maybe try that, some startups or things like that. But
Mhm.
big companies, I don't see it very often. Maybe YouTube use it, but again, I'm not 100% sure. Okay, so I think that if you do not have any question, maybe we can end the session, and I think we are in time, right?
Yeah, we are on time, and it was a very great presentation from you, Tiago. So I enjoyed the part very much. So I always learn something new to it, what I could apply tomorrow in my own project. So it was, for me at least, it was very useful today's session.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I hope you that are watching also have learned something new, and maybe if not, by reading the book, maybe you can learn something new. And as Chila said, use in your daily activities and yeah, increase your productivity by doing the right thing at the beginning instead of doing the wrong thing and then need to fix it, because
Mm.
this is the the things that we should avoid.
Mhm.
Happens a lot in IT. We go to the wrong path and then we need to refactor. Yeah,
Exactly.
happens a lot.
Yes.
Happens a lot. Okay, so thank you again, everyone that's watching. Any other question that you have, and if you don't have the time to answer here, you can also find me on LinkedIn and ask me. There is no problem. I will be glad to answer your questions.
Mhm.
Thank you. And again, if you are not able also to ask me, we are be here on the next month, actually, right? There is no session anymore this month. The next session will be on the first week of November. So we see you there.
Mhm. Thank you, Tiago, and thank you everyone who joined us today. So see you next time.
Thanks. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye.